Good morning to our panel of DraftKings contributors, Pearce Dietrich, Matt Meiselman, and Julian Edlow, breaking down game totals for the final week of the NFL regular season. Starting with the Saturday games here, guys. Chiefs at the Broncos. If they beat Denver and the Texans upset Tennessee on Sunday, Kansas City gets the 1 seed. You've got to think Andy Reid treats this one seriously because they could fall all the way to the 4 seed with a loss. Over or under a total of 45, Pearce?
Well, I think you're looking at the wrong coach here. You got to go with the under. When Andy Reid faces a Vic Fangio Denver defense, the under's 4-1. And the one time that they hit the over, Kansas City had a pick six for a touchdown, a kick return for a touchdown, and then a garbage time Chad Henne touchdown drive at the end. That result was due to an onside kick. So it was barely even a half a field that they had to go. So they don't really score much. The one thing I would keep my eye on, though, and we're going to say this over and over, is look at the injury report. We got Bradley Chubb and Bryce Callahan are on the COVID list. If those guys are out, then maybe Kansas City can really pour on the points. But right now, I got to lean towards the under.
Okay, Jules, which way are you leaning here?
Over under 45 is a pretty good number to set for a number of Chick-fil-A sandwiches that Pirate Tom should order us for our Sunday show.
Absolutely.
In the office, Emerson.
I know, but it's closed on Sunday. You have to keep that in mind. I know. It gets us every time. Every time.
That ruins my whole analysis here. I'm with Pearce. I'm going with the under. I'll just steal his analysis then. But, yeah, seriously, we saw the two teams play. They played to an under. Yes, we just saw the shootout between Kansas City and Cincy, but that's a completely different situation. Kansas City does need to get this game to hold on to the 2 seed, to hold out hope to maybe steal the 1 seed from Tennessee. But in all likelihood, Tennessee as a double-digit favorite is going to win. The Chiefs are going to be playing a week later on Wild Card Weekend. This is a game that you want to get a lead and just hold it, not do anything too fancy, and the Broncos at this point are just kind of going to shoot themselves in the foot, it seems like. So we saw what they did against the Chargers. The Chargers went off. They needed a win badly. I think this is a little bit lower scoring of the same game we just saw the Chargers and Broncos play.
All right, Matt, Kansas City can put that pressure on the Titans heading into the early games on Sunday with a big win.
Yeah, I'm not sure how motivated they'll be to do it because the Titans are playing the Texans, and that is probably a game they'll win. So maybe the Chiefs just realize that. I do have some concerns as someone who is also leaning under, just like these guys are, with Drew Lock, because that's the difference in the Broncos now compared to previous weeks and for most of the season. Like, this guy can definitely throw a pick six or two or just have a turnover that sets the other team up in good field position. So, like, it's more of a high variance game when you have Drew Lock, who is just like slinging the ball around and can make a lot of mistakes, but he also can throw the ball downfield compared to Teddy Bridgewater, who's much more conservative. The one thing I will say, though, is I think this total will rise by game time because this is now it's like a primetime game. It's a Saturday 4:30 game instead of being on Sunday. I think we just get a lot of people that want to root for points here. It's Patrick Mahomes. Over bets will come in. So it's 45 now. I wouldn't be surprised to see it reach 46. So for me and for anyone else who likes the under, maybe you just wait on it. You get a better number later.
Okay, one total that is under that. We got Eagles and the Cowboys. Jules, they're both locked in. However, a loss would end any hope of a 2 or 3 seed for Dallas and another potential home game. Are we going over or under 42.5 in Philly?
Yeah, it's a low total for a Cowboys-Eagles game, right? So we got to look into what's going on here. What's the motivation? It seems like Dallas is going to try and win this game for seeding purposes. And we saw that. This number was 2.5, 3, blew up to 7. Eagles potentially with some COVID concern. And the Eagle, like, how motivated are the Eagles going to be? They got in. They clinched their spot last week in Washington. Almost had some bad luck losing Jalen Hurts walking off the field. So they got to feel good that they have their quarterback going into the playoffs. They might just play this one safe and get into their wild card spot and just play with what they have. So it all depends on Dallas for me. Like, I really don't feel comfortable with this game total. Like, why is it so low? Is it about the Eagles? Is Dallas actually not as motivated as they are letting on? I would probably just wait until closer to kick, make sure we're going to get Dallas's top effort, see if Philly is down some guys, and play the over on Dallas's team total. I don't know. This total's got my mind in a blender, but that's the way I would go about it.
Matt, does this total have your mind in a blender?
Not quite. I am a little confused, but
that's smarter than I am.
That is not true, but I may have another piece of information that could explain it. It's going to be like 20 something degrees for this game, so I think that's partly why the total is so low. And I also think it's possible the Eagles just don't play their main offensive starters the whole game, or perhaps not at all. Like they don't need to win this game. They're in the playoffs. I think this game really just dictates if they're the 6 or the 7 seed, and they can't really move around much more than that. Dallas Goedert and Jason Kelsey, their center, are the two main COVID concerns right now, but they're potentially missing a lot of their offense, and like there's just not much point. And with it being so cold, like maybe there's more injury risk than normal. The Eagles don't usually play in 20-degree weather. I know it's Philly in the winter, it's always cold, but it's usually not this cold. So I think this is one to just keep an eye on, because if we find out that the Eagles players have cleared protocols and everyone's going to be out there, like maybe you bet the over at that point despite the cold weather. But I think this could go either way, where the Eagles just say we don't need this game, we've got a banged up team, let's just give it a week and we'll play in the playoffs, because 6 versus 7 seeding wise doesn't really matter that much.
Okay, Pearce, which way are you leaning here?
Matt might have just talked me into the under, which is crazy because 42.5 is a really low number for Dallas. And Dallas has been hitting unders every single week, but the numbers have been much higher. And their defense has played really well. But you go back to early in the season, their offense was rolling. They were hitting overs. The defense was still playing pretty well. But what was happening was teams, specifically Philadelphia, the Giants, Carolina, they were getting these garbage points at the end that were pushing the games to go over. Now, it was much higher totals. But going to what these guys have already mentioned, if Philly's got COVID issues, if Philly's going to rest their starters at the end like Matt thinks is going to happen, then I don't think it does hit the over. If we find out that Philly's going to play everybody and most of their guys are going to be healthy, then I do like the over because it's a low number, and I think you can get that backdoor over cover. But now I'm starting to worry. I don't think these guys are going to play. So if that's the case, I'm going under.
Okay, well, the Cardinals were the team that just knocked off Dallas, and they are still alive for the division. And Seattle hit the over last week by themselves. So, Matt, how confident are you the Seahawks will show up again and over 48 points will hit?
I'm not that confident. So I feel like that the Seahawks game last week just is kind of resulting in an inflated number here. The Seahawks generally play pretty slow, and their big games come from Russell Wilson connecting on deep balls, and they've had some games recently where they've been able to hit some really big running plays. But they did that against, I think it was Houston. They had one of their best offensive games, and then last week was Detroit. This is a much better defense in Arizona. Like, I just don't think that strategy is going to work to the same level. I mean, Seahawks kind of are a high variance team where, like, if Wilson is sharp on the deep throws, they can score points with anyone. But the more likely outcome, I think, is that this game is pretty slow paced. The Cardinals do run the ball a lot, even if some of those are called passing plays, because Murray will scramble a lot. Like, the clock is probably going to be moving a lot during this game, assuming it's close. So maybe this is like a point or two too high. Like, I'm leaning under. I don't feel super strong about it, but I think this total's a little too high.
You think it's a little too high as well, Pearce?
I don't. I'm going to chase the over, and maybe this is I'm being a mark here, and I'm chasing Russell Wilson cooking one final meal, or them scoring a bunch of points last week. But they've been gone over 4 of the last 5, and it's been pretty not even close. They went over by 5, went over by 8, 8.5, and then over by 39. So they've been comfortably ahead. And Matt's right; they have played some easy teams, but Arizona is not quite the defense that they were early in the season. They've got a lot of injuries that are starting to pile up. They're going under the radar. Like, Robert Alford's been one of the best cornerbacks in the league this season, and he's out. And so that's definitely going to open up spots in the passing game. They're just not getting a lot of attention. And then Seattle on the other side, their defense has been bad all season, and they've got a lot of guys that are going to be out for this game. And I think that's going to help the Arizona team that's struggled offensively get back in the groove. And I know this is one of the higher totals this week, but both these defenses, I think, are going to allow a bunch of points.
All right, Jules, how you feel about this total?
Yeah, I mean, I lean to the over here. I think we should see some points. But the number's a little juiced up. Like Matt said, we just saw the huge output by Seattle, so that's always going to get us a worse number here if you lean to the over side. Totals are really tough in week 18. This is the first week 18. I was going to say week 17 in general, whatever. The last week of the season. Totals can be tough. Like, a team can come out and just lay an egg, like literally score 0 and not care because the season's over. I would think Seattle would try and sling it around against Arizona and be capable of it, just like they were last week, not to the same degree. And I just prefer to side with the motivation in Week 18. Like Arizona needs one. We just talked about the Dallas one. That's kind of a tricky one. Like parlay Dallas and Arizona money line, or tease the teams. They're probably both going to win. Now whether it's winning like 21-7 or 42-30, who knows? I just think the totals are much tougher this week. So I lean over here. I'm much more confident that Arizona just wins the game, and you can use that as a piece.
All right, let's stay in the NFC West because the 49ers can make it easy for themselves with a win, which would give them a wild card spot. But they're also facing the Rams, who need a win to lock up the entire division. This one over or under 44 points, Pearce?
I'm going to take the under. I like both the defenses in San Francisco and in Los Angeles. Both the offenses have been inconsistent. I mean, more so the Rams offense, just letting us down. We expect a lot more from them. San Francisco is about a 25-point per game offense when they're healthy. If Garoppolo plays, I don't think he's 100%. I don't think he's going to get them 25 points. I don't think Trey Lance can get them 25 points. And I especially don't think they can do that against the Rams. My only concern is if you look at the San Francisco secondary, which has struggled this season, they might be missing several people. And if Los Angeles uses this as a tune-up game to get their passing game going for the playoffs, then they could really pile some points on. But right now, where it stands, I think we're going to go under.
Okay, Julian, whether it's Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo, how does that impact your decision here?
I mean, it might move it a little bit. It depends, like Pearce said, on Jimmy's health if he does play, which is something we may not know. But what I do like about this game is that both teams are clearly trying. San Francisco is playing for the potential of a playoff spot. We'll see what happens in Saints Falcons and some of these other games. And the Rams are playing for the division and a 2 seed. So there's motivation. It's a divisional game late in the season. These teams have seen each other. I do lean under here. I think it should be kind of a grind of a game where Stafford's not playing well. The Niners aren't right. Both teams are solid defensively, even if they've given up a little bit more than they should have in some other games. This is the type of situation where these two teams know each other and will, I think, be able to limit the opposing offenses more. So yeah, I do lean under in this one.
Okay, Matt, if Trey Lance had some big plays with his arms and legs against the Texans last week, he gets warmed up. But facing the Rams pressure and that coverage, that's different.
Yeah, definitely. And this is the total I'm most torn on because it has a lot to do with who the quarterback is for me. So I think Trey Lance is a little bit worse than a healthy Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know if he's worse than a compromised Jimmy Garoppolo. And then Lance is probably someone who, when he's in, you're going to see the ball on the ground more, whether it's him running himself or they just don't want to put the ball in the air as much. I think that there's more likelihood of an under in a game where Lance is starting compared to Garoppolo. But I also think it's possible that they play both guys. Like we saw this early in the season where Garoppolo was struggling and Lance played some snaps and played goal line, and or even games where Garoppolo was doing well. I think all the way back in week 1, Lance just got in for a brief stint just, to mix things up. And the fact that these teams did already face each other, maybe the Niners want to do something different to make sure they can win and get in the playoffs. So there's a lot of different ways this could go. And I do think that the quarterback situation is the thing to keep the closest eye on. So I like the over if Garoppolo starts, and I like the under if Lance starts, but both of those are really slight leans. Like I think that 44 is pretty much what the fair total is.